I wiped down the last steel gurney, my arms aching. The bleach and chlorine mix stung my nose, but that was the job. 43 bodies from the recent pool disaster lined the walls of the body storage room, and every single one needed processing. 2 days of this shit. 2 days of wet bathing suits, pruned skin, and that sick, sweet smell of pool chemicals rotting in the humidity. "Just get through it, Reese," I muttered, tossing the rag into my cart. The storm outside rattled the building. It was the same as 2 nights ago when lightning hit the transformer and sent 10,000 volts through the community pool, killing 43 men, women, and children instantly. People said lightning didn't strike twice, but the air down here tasted like ozone. It felt ready to snap. I checked my watch, 11:52 p.m. Just 8 minutes until the end of my shift. 8 minutes till freedom. The body bag closest to me had the toe tag of a 9-year-old boy. There was a small bump under the plastic, just a kid at swim lessons. I swallowed hard and looked away. I couldn't think about it. I couldn't picture the face. I just had to focus on the job. Thunder boomed directly overhead, vibrating through the soles of my boots. Time to go. I pushed my cart towards the exit, wheels squeaking across the tile floor. The elevator stood 20 feet away. I hit the call button and tapped my foot, waiting for the chime. Then the storm hit again. Harder this time. The walls shook. The overhead lights dimmed, then surged blinding white. Then I saw it. Arcs of blue-white current crawled across the metal tables like living fingers. It jumped from tray to tray, skittering across every steel surface in the room. What the? The air exploded. A shockwave thrown by the voltage slammed into me, throwing me backwards. The edges of my vision stretched, and white pain swallowed me whole. Then darkness. For what felt like an eternity, I couldn't see anything. Then the emergency lights clicked on, casting blood-red shadows across the room. I picked myself up from the floor, ears ringing. How long was I out? Minutes? Seconds? The morgue looked wrong now. The red glow stretched the shadows into impossible shapes. Familiar corners seemed miles away. The rows of bodies created a maze I couldn't remember how to navigate. But then something caught my eye. A gurney pushed out from the wall. I frowned. That wasn't right. I'd lined them up all perfectly. The body bag on it looked different too. It was creased, as if whatever it was inside had shifted. It was a power surge, I said out loud to myself. My voice sounded tinny in the dead air. Vibration from the thunder, that's all it was. A metallic scrape echoed from somewhere in the room. I froze, straining to hear. Nothing followed. I pulled out my flashlight and swept the beam across the room. Nothing moved, just rows of body bags. The emergency lights flickered, and in that half second of deeper darkness, I saw movement under one of the bags. A twitch, small, but definite. My throat went dry. Check on it or run? I took 3 small steps towards the pushed-out gurney. I had to fix it. I had to prove to myself it was nothing. The zipper on the bag was partially open. That was wrong. I had closed all of them. Always close all of them. I reached out to touch the tray, intending to push it back into place, but the moment my hand met the cold steel, I felt the heavy, distinct shift of weight from inside the bag. My heart slammed against my ribs. Sweat broke out across my forehead. Electrical discharge, I whispered. Muscles contract after death. It happens. Then the body inside sat up. Plastic clung to its form as it gasped and wheezed, fighting against the bag. The movement wasn't coordinated. It wasn't human. It was panicked, animal-like thrashing. Nerve response, I stammered, backing away. Just electricity in the muscles. Just... A sound came from inside the bag. A whimper. High-pitched and small. It was the 9-year-old boy. The sound hit me like a punch. That wasn't a nerve response. That wasn't science. Spasms didn't cry. Movement caught my eye from across the room. Another bag shifted, then another. The rustle of plastic spread like a wave through the morgue. 3 more body bags twitched, then sat upright. Plastic stretched as hands pushed against the inside, fighting to break free. A woman with blue-tinged skin tore through her bag, gasping and choking. Her eyes were unfocused, pupils blown wide. She swept her head back and forth, sightless. "Mass hallucination," I whispered. "Gas leak, something in the vents." A middle-aged man in swim trunks pulled himself off his tray. He stumbled, crashing into another gurney. The noise made 6 other heads snap in that direction. They didn't look towards the man. They looked toward the sound. I backed myself into a corner, knocking over a small metal tray. The clatter echoed, and every single body still moving turned towards me. They couldn't see well. Their movements were hesitant, uncoordinated, but they heard perfectly. They shambled towards the noise, bumping into each other, confused but determined. "Post-mortem neural activity," I muttered. "Temporary reanimation from electrical stimulus." I tried to justify what I was seeing, throwing every medical textbook explanation I had at the problem, but none of them stuck. I ran through the lists: spasms, gas, shock, but nothing fit. There was only one word left, and I hated how perfectly it sat on my tongue. Undead. I slid along the wall, careful to keep silent. One of the bodies, a teenage girl with chlorine-bleached hair, walked face first into a support beam. She didn't react to the impact, just kept pushing forward. "Hello?" A male voice whispered from somewhere to my left. "Is someone there? Help me!" I moved towards the voice, ducking behind gurneys. An orderly, Daniel Soto, according to his badge, crouched behind a supply cart. His face was slick with sweat, eyes wide with panic. "Keep quiet," I breathed, barely audible. "They react to sound." "What the fuck is happening?" Daniel asked, his voice rising. "Are they—" "Shh!" I clamped my hand over his mouth. 3 of them turned towards us, their heads tilted, listening. "They can't see well," I whispered directly into his ear, "but they hear everything. We need to stay silent." Daniel nodded frantically. I removed my hand. "But they're dead," he said, still too loud. "I processed them myself. No pulse, no." A metal tray clattered across the room. All the undead lurched towards the sound, colliding with each other in their rush. I pulled Daniel deeper into the shadows and clicked off my flashlight. "What are you doing?" he hissed, grabbing for it. "I can't see." "They move towards the noise," I said through clenched teeth. "Stay still. Stay quiet." Daniel's breathing quickened. I felt his hand shake against my arm. "We've got to get out. We have to stop talking," I said, gripping his wrist. "Sound equals death. Do you understand?" He nodded, but his eyes darted wildly in the darkness. I pointed towards the exit, 20 feet away. If we moved slowly enough. Daniel stiffened beside me. An undead woman had stumbled within 5 feet of us, her head cocked to one side. She wore a one-piece swimsuit, her skin wrinkled from water exposure. I felt Daniel's muscles tense. "Don't," I mouthed. He broke anyway. Scrambling backwards, he crashed into a stack of instrument pans. The noise exploded through the morgue like a gunshot. Every head in the room snapped towards us. "Run!" Daniel screamed, bolting for the door. He made it 3 steps before the first wave hit him. 6, 7, 8 of them converged, grabbing and tearing. Daniel's screams cut through the air, raw and primal. I lunged to help him, but I was useless. They were on him like feral dogs tearing into a stray cat. Blood sprayed across the white tile floor. I saw a hand hook into his mouth, and then the wet snap of bone as his jaw tore free. Daniel twitched once, then went still. But they didn't stop. They continued ripping at his motionless body, driven by sound and fury. I pressed myself flat against the wall, not daring to breathe. 5 feet away lay what remained of Daniel Soto. I understood now. Sound wasn't just dangerous. Sound was fatal. I crouched behind a steel cabinet, counting the minutes since Daniel's death. The undead circled his remains, then drifted apart, aimless without sound to guide them. They moved like drunks, colliding with walls, stumbling over equipment. No coordination, no purpose, just endless, hungry wandering. After 30 minutes, I knew hiding wouldn't work. The emergency lights were flickering more frequently. The backup generator was struggling. If it died completely, I'd be trapped in pitch darkness with them. I needed out, and I needed out now. I mentally cataloged my options. The elevator was dead. No power meant no lift. The main access doors, heavy, airtight seals designed for hygiene and containment. They locked down automatically during power failures. The stairwells, mag-locked. They required electricity to open, and a key card I didn't have. I pressed my own palm against my forehead, trying to remember the evacuation training. There was an emergency hatch, right? A physical exit that bypassed the electronic locks. But it needed a key. An actual iron key, not a badge. Dr. Keller, the night pathologist, would have it. He was working late in the autopsy suite when the surge hit. I checked my watch. If I could get to the suite, get the key, and reach the hatch, I might survive this. I observed their movements, looking for patterns. They moved toward sound, but otherwise drifted randomly. If I timed my steps with their collisions, I could mask my footfalls. I took a deep breath and slipped away from my hiding place. The autopsy suite door hung open, casting a dim light into the corridor. I peered inside. 3 undead wandered between the steel tables. On the floor lay Dr. Keller, his lab coat soaked with blood. His chest was crushed, ribs exposed where he'd been trampled. My stomach turned. The undead must have woken here first. The pathologist hadn't stood a chance. But the key would still be on him. Standard protocol. Emergency keys stayed with senior staff at all times. I waited by the door, watching the undead bump into cabinets and tables. One collided with an instrument tray, the clang drawing the attention of the others. While they converged on the noise, I slipped inside, keeping my body low. Keller's corpse lay 10 feet away. I slowly crawled towards him, freezing whenever an undead turned in my direction. Their movements were predictable. Jerk left, stumble right, pause, repeat. I timed my crawl to match their rhythm. I reached the body and carefully patted down its pockets. Nothing in the lab coat. Nothing in his right pants pocket. I slid my hand into his left pocket and felt the hard edge of metal. The keys jingled as I pulled them out of his pocket. All 3 heads snapped in my direction. I yanked the keys free and scrambled backwards as they lurched towards me. My shoulder hit a table, sending a metal basin clattering to the floor. The undead jerked toward the louder sound, giving me precious seconds to escape. I bolted for the door, keys clutched tight in my fist. Back in the main corridor, I struggled to control my breathing. Mentally, I clocked where the hatch was. It was 2 hallways away. The emergency lights surged bright, then dimmed. The generator whined, pitched higher. Then the evacuation alarm triggered. The shrill wail hit like a physical force. Every undead in the building reacted simultaneously, jerking, thrashing, clawing at the air. They screamed back at the alarm, adding their ragged voices to the chaos. The corridor filled with them. They poured from doorways, crashing into each other, creating a stampede of flailing limbs and gnashing teeth. I ran. No point in stealth now. The alarm drowned everything. An undead woman lunged from a doorway. I dodged left. Another surged from behind a cart. I swerved right. The cold storage room appeared ahead, its heavy door standing open. My only chance. I sprinted towards it, throwing my body inside as the wave of undead crashed behind me. The door slammed shut with a hydraulic hiss, locking automatically. Safety. But then I heard the compressors kick on. The refrigeration system had reactivated with the generator's final surge. Cold air blasted from the vents. I watched frost form on the metal racks, spreading across the walls like living things. The temperature plummeted. Within minutes, my breath formed thick clouds. My fingers stiffened. Shivers racked my body. I yanked on the door handle. Locked. From the outside, I heard the muffled sounds of undead scratching at the metal. The key in my hand was useless here. I was trapped. I'd escaped being torn apart only to freeze to death. My body preserved alongside the victims I'd spent days processing. The cold bit deeper. My choices were clear. Stay and die slowly, or try and open the door and die instantly. There was no third option. The cold turned from discomfort to agony. My fingers burned, then went numb. Frostbite would set in soon, followed by hypothermia. 20 minutes, maybe 30, before I'd lose consciousness. Another hour before death. Outside, the undead pounded against the door, their dull thuds creating a sickening rhythm. I searched the room frantically, my movements clumsy as the cold stiffened my joints. Empty storage racks, bare steel tables. Nothing useful. Then I spotted it, a maintenance panel low on the back wall. The refrigeration access point. Hope flared in my chest as I stumbled towards it. I dropped to my knees, fingers fumbling at the edges. The metal was frozen shut, rimmed with frost. I pulled harder. Nothing budged. "Come on," I hissed, digging in my pockets. My hand closed around my scraper tool, the one I used for cleaning dried blood from floor seams. I jammed the edge into the gap and leaned my weight into it. The metal groaned but gave away with a crack. Ice shattered as the panel swung open. Behind it lay a narrow crawl space, barely wide enough for my shoulders. A maintenance passage for the cooling system. It might lead somewhere. Anywhere but here. I hesitated. The space was tight, dark, and lined with machinery. But staying meant certain death. I took a deep breath and squeezed inside. The first cut happened immediately. A jagged edge of metal sliced across my forearm. I bit back a cry. The second injury came when my shoulder pressed against a hot pipe. Pain seared through my shirt, branding my skin. I kept moving. Every inch was torture. The passage narrowed further, forcing me to wiggle forward on my stomach. Sharp brackets scraped my back. Exposed bolts tore at my clothes and my skin. My knees bled from crawling over metal mesh flooring. A pipe junction blocked my path, forcing me to twist sideways. Something ripped in my shoulder. I gasped but kept pushing. No room to turn back now. The tunnel bent at a sharp angle. I contorted my body to follow it, feeling skin tear across my ribs. Blood made the metal slick beneath me. My vision blurred. How much had I lost? After what felt like hours, I saw it. A square of dim light. The exit hatch to the maintenance room. I clawed my way forward, ignoring the burning in my muscles and the wetness of fresh blood down my legs. The hatch was smaller than I had hoped. I pushed my head and one shoulder through, then stuck. Panic rose in my throat as I struggled to force my body through the narrow opening. I exhaled completely, compressing my chest, and gave one final push. I tumbled through, landing on the concrete floor below. The maintenance room hummed with the sound of the generator. It stood in the center, a massive metal beast spitting heat and noise. Beside it was the main disconnect, a heavy lever fused with rust and disuse. I stumbled towards it, leaving bloody footprints on the floor. My arms felt too weak to lift, but I had no other choice. The emergency hatch was electronically linked to the generator system. I grabbed the lever with both hands. It didn't budge. I pulled harder. It still didn't move. Feeling the raw cuts on my palms stretch and tear, I yanked as hard as I could. Nothing. But desperation gave me the strength I needed. I hung my entire body weight from the handle, letting gravity do the work. The lever creaked, then broke free with a metallic shriek. It slammed down. The generator died with a wheeze. The lights cut out. Complete darkness swallowed me. In the silence that followed, I heard the mechanical click of maglocks disengaging through the sublevel. Every sealed door was now open, including the doors holding back the undead. Screams erupted from all directions, not human screams, but the ragged gasping cries of the not quite dead. The darkness made them clumsy, but they were everywhere now, no longer contained. I used the chaos as cover, slipping through the maintenance room door. The emergency hatch was one corridor away. I ran towards it, guided by muscle memory and the faint glow of exit signs. The hatch appeared ahead, a heavy steel door with a simple keyhole. My hands trembled as I fumbled with the key, blood making my grip slippery. The metal key scraped against the lock, missing once. Twice. Behind me, the sounds grew louder. They were coming. The key slid in. I turned it, feeling the mechanism click. The hatch opened with a groan just wide enough for me to see the night sky beyond. Something grabbed my ankle. I kicked backwards, connecting with soft flesh. A hand clutched my shirt. I twisted away, feeling fabric tear. An undead man, his face half hidden by a plastic sheet, lunged through the gap. I slammed my elbow into his throat. He fell back, giving me the second I needed. I squeezed through the opening and onto the cold ground outside. Rain pelted my face as I turned to slam the hatch shut. I pushed with everything I had left, crushing an arm that had reached through the gap. The lock clicked into place. I fell back onto wet grass, gasping for air. The storm had passed, leaving behind a cool, rain-washed night. Below me, fists pounded against metal. I was out, but safety was still miles away, and I had no idea what waited in the darkness between here and help.